Most people enter the world of trading with a fundamental misunderstanding of how numbers actually work. They see the market as a ladder. They think if they slip down 3 rungs, they simply have to climb back up those same 3 rungs to be back where they started. But trading isn't a ladder. Trading is a vertical cliff covered in ice. Every inch you fall down that cliff makes the climb back up twice as hard as the fall itself. This is the phenomenon known as asymmetric risk. And it is the single most common reason why accounts, even those managed by seemingly intelligent people, eventually hit zero. Think about your capital, not as money, but as fuel. In any other business, if you lose 10% of your inventory, you can buy more. In trading, your inventory is the money. When it's gone, the machine stops. Let's look at the cold, hard reality of the drawdown table. This is the math that the get-rich-quick gurus never show you, because it isn't sexy, it's terrifying. If you lose 10% of your account, you need an 11% gain to get back to break-even. That doesn't sound too bad, right? It's a slight handicap, but if you lose 20%, the math starts to shift. You now need a 25% gain. You are already starting to work harder than the market did to take your money. At a 30% loss, you need a 43% gain. At a 40% loss, you need a 67% gain. And here is the event horizon, the point of no return. If you lose 50% of your account, you do not need a 50% gain to recover. You need a 100% gain. You have to double your remaining money just to reach the point where you started. Stop and think about that. You spent months, maybe years, saving that capital. You lost half of it in a week of emotional trading. Now, the market demands that you perform a feat of 1.00% growth, just so you can be back to zero. When a trader hits a 30% or 40% drawdown, something happens in the brain. We call it the Amygdala Hijack. This is the biological survival mechanism that takes over when we feel threatened. In the prehistoric world, this kept us alive from predators. In the modern trading world, it ensures our financial death. When you are deep in the hole, your logic center, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down. You stop looking at your edge. You stop looking at the charts with objectivity. Instead, you start looking at the required gain. You see that you need a 67% return to get your money back. Your original strategy, which maybe makes 2% or 3% a month, now feels useless. You think, if I stay with this strategy, it will take me 2 years just to get back to where I was last Monday. This is the moment of maximum danger. This is where revenge trading is born. You decide that the only way out is to size up. You tell yourself it's just for one trade. You look for a sure thing. You find a setup that looks slightly better than average, and you put 5 times your normal risk on it. You aren't trading anymore. You are gambling on a miracle. If that trade wins, you learn the worst lesson a trader can ever learn, that breaking your rules saves you. You become a randomly reinforced gambler. You will eventually do it again, and next time, the market will keep the change. If that trade loses, the math becomes catastrophic. You move from a 40% drawdown to a 70% drawdown. Now, you need a 300% gain to break even. At this point, the account is functionally dead. The trader usually enters a state of trading paralysis. They watch the last few dollars evaporate because they've lost the will to execute a stop loss. The math of ruin doesn't just steal your money, it steals your sanity. We have been conditioned by school and society to believe that being right 90% of the time is the goal. In trading, searching for a 90% win rate is the fastest way to find a 100% loss. Why? Because systems with extremely high win rates often have what we call negative skew. They win small, frequent amounts, but they have black swan losers. They are like a turkey that is fed every day for 1,000 days. Every day, the turkey's win rate for staying alive increases. The turkey feels like a genius. Then comes Thanksgiving. A trader with a 90% win rate who doesn't understand the math of ruin will eventually face a trade that goes against them because they are so used to being right. They won't cut the loss. They will average down. They will move their stop loss. They will say it has to turn around eventually. That one trade, that 1 out of 10, wipes out the profits of the other 9 trades. And 50% of the principal. Professional trading is not about being right. It's about expected value. A professional can be right only 30% of the time and still be a millionaire because their average win is 5 times larger than their average loss. Their math is positive skewed. When they lose a paper cut. When they win a marathon. The math of ruin cannot touch a trader who keeps their losses at 1%. If you lose 1%, you need 1.01% to get back. You can do that in your sleep. You can lose 10 times in a row, something that is statistically rare, and you are only down about 10%. You are still in the game. You still have your sanity. The difference between a gambler and a trader is that the gambler is trying to make money, while the trader is trying to protect the ability to make money. There is a mathematical formula called the risk of ruin. It calculates the probability that you will lose your entire account based on your win rate and the percentage of capital you risk per trade. Most beginners risk 5% or 10% per trade because they have a small account and they want to make it worth their time. If you have a $1,000 account and you risk $100 per trade, you only need a string of 10 bad trades to be at zero. You might think, I'll never lose 10 times in a row. But in a world of random distributions, a string of 10 losers is not just possible. It is inevitable if you trade long enough. If you risk 10% per trade, your risk of ruin is almost 100% over a long enough timeline. It doesn't matter how good your strategy is. Eventually, the statistical variance will catch you. True professionals treat their capital like a sacred resource. They understand that the market is a chaotic system. They don't try to predict the chaos. They try to survive it. They use position sizing as their primary weapon. They calculate the distance between their entry and their stop loss, and they adjust their size so that if the stop is hit, they only lose 1%. This is the boring phase of trading. It doesn't feel like a movie. It doesn't feel like a high-stakes poker game. It feels like accounting. It feels like insurance. But this boredom is the price of admission for long-term wealth. If your trading is exciting, you are likely flirting with the math of ruin. If you are listening to this and you are already in a drawdown, if you have already felt the weight of the math against you, there is a way out. But it isn't the way you think. The way out is not a huge win. The way out is to stop digging. First, you must accept that the money you lost is gone. It is a tuition fee paid to the market university. If you keep trying to get it back, the market will keep taking more. Second, you must reset the scale. If your account went from $10,000 to $5,000, you are no longer a $10,000 trader. You are a $5,000 trader. You must risk 1% of 5,000, not 1% of the original 10,000. This is the hardest pill to swallow. It feels like moving backward, but it is the only way to stabilize the ship. Third, you must focus on process over profit. For the next 20 trades, Your goal should not be to make money. Your goal should be to execute your plan perfectly. If you follow your risk rules for 20 trades, you have won, regardless of the P and L. You are rebuilding the most important asset you have: self-trust. Once self-trust is restored, the math begins to work in your favor again. Small, consistent gains, compounded over time, are the eighth wonder of the world. The market is a giant machine designed to transfer money from the impatient to the patient, and from the mathematically illiterate to the mathematically disciplined. The math of ruin is the filter of the marketplace. It removes those who refuse to respect it. You don't need a 90% win rate. You don't need a secret indicator. You don't need to know what the Fed is going to do tomorrow, and you just need to stay on the right side of the numbers. You need to keep your losses so small that the climb back up is never more than a few steps. Respect the size, respect the drawdown, respect the math, because in the end, the numbers don't have feelings. They don't care about your why. They don't care about your dreams. They only care about the logic of the equation. Make sure you are on the right side of that equation. Stay small, stay alive, and eventually you will be the one the math rewards.